Just a few minutes ago, we saw the 6-month auction, and we saw indirect bidders, the percentage of them jumping to more than 60%. Are we getting central banks back in action, trying to bargain hunt? Will they provide support?
That's going to be a really interesting focal point for the next month or so. Central banks and the Fed in particular have been eerily quiet over the last couple of weeks as we've seen yields starting to grind higher. Personally, I think they're comfortable with it. The markets are starting to bake in inflation, and they are starting to take the prospect of the withdrawal of monetary policy stimulus properly, which is something that they have been trying to get the markets to do for the better part of 2 years now. So they're finally starting to price that in. I think the central banks aren't going to step in and change the direction of travel anytime soon.
So there's different ways to look at real yields, it turns out. I have a chart here, 1193, and in the chart library, it's US 10-year inflation-linked note yields. But if you take a different benchmark, you'll get even a negative yield. This at least is positive. Where is the real yield?
It's a very good question. I think the real yield right now, that's really been what's pushing up this idea of higher inflation pressures coming through over the course of this year. Go back to the beginning of the year, and had you asked me, do we think inflation's going to be on the agenda in 2018? I would have probably said to you, not really. The reason being is that we weren't seeing the wage pressure coming through. Now we've seen a good wage pressure number come through for January, albeit with some weather effects, but we also then got a backup of that with the CPI number last week for January. We're watching this closely. I think it's too early to be answering that question. I need to see whether that data that we saw come through in January was just a blip or the start of something more meaningful before getting into a discussion about where that real yield number really starts to lie.